Here we go. All right, I got the thumbs up from Lance. Welcome to the 5th lecture series on the 10 Commandments of Aging. That's what we're affectionately calling it. Today, we are going to be covering a very, very unique and interesting topic. So where it fits is, if you'll remember in review, quality of life, aging successfully or aging abundantly by making sure that we're engaged in things that matter to us and finding ways to do them and fitting them into our regular life was one of the topics, and how to do that. Another one was safety, so we can avoid about 75% of the negative things that normally happen as we age, was another one. Today, Merkel's was up here last week. Dr. Merkel's talking about how to be more successful in managing medical conditions. There's only 7 basic things it takes to be much more effective at avoiding or slowing any disease processes and avoiding exacerbations of them. And then today we're going to be talking about caregiver burden or chronic stress. Caregiver burden or chronic stress. And I'm going to have everybody, while we start this, you're going to look a little bit funny, but you're going to hold your left hand out and just put anything in your left hand. A hat, a cup, coffee cup is good. Yep, and then keep it there. Not in front of your, just right out here. Just keep it there for a minute till I tell you to put them down. Don't shake, don't change hands with it either. Here we go. Soon and there we go. All right. So 2 of the commandments we're kind of combining today is thou shalt take care of your stress levels. And then you'll ask for help if you need it. Okay? That's the 2 we're covering today. Just keep it out there. If it starts to feel, if your coffee or phone starts to feel a little heavy, just kind of wave at me, but do not put it down. My daughter's here. As much as that phone is in your hand, I know that that is not heavy for you. You are used to that. That is almost 24/7. All right, so let's see if y'all can just make it through the music. You know what the problem is? It's a different position for my daughter. It's normally like this, and this time it's like this. Keep it there for another minute. Hold on. We're going to be talking about chronic stress or caregiver burden. We love our people. We love our spouses. We love our parents. We love each other. And then they start needing a little bit more help. And the more you love somebody and the more you care, the more likely you are to get hit by chronic stress. And I want us to all understand that. If y'all can't read that, it's saying that in Houston each year we have tens of thousands of members who basically lives aren't going to be the same. Okay? They're coming home differently than they were the day or the week before. And there's caregivers involved with those. And in the background, just picture some beautiful soft music playing. Okay? We're talking about caregivers. Has anybody raised their hand and waved at me? Their phone's getting heavy yet? You feeling it yet? Starting to get a burn in a shoulder? So we took some quotes from some of the people that we were dealing with when we were doing the research on this. I see people already starting to have to use their other hand to help. Some people are getting smart. They're wedging their elbows against their side. Whenever your husband of 48 years loses their independence, everything changes. You feel like part of you has been lost. On grief, people do not understand or allow you to grieve for what you lose. They do not allow you to express it, to be angry, to be frightened, to feel a loss. Now, these are the caregivers, not the patients. My wife isn't going to walk again. I know this isn't how she wanted to spend our retirement. I know every one of these stories. They were heartbreaking at the time. as we're going through it. She doesn't remember me, who I am. I miss my wife's laughter. I miss her smile. I miss my sweetheart. My mom currently has dementia. My aunt quit recognizing any of us a year ago. But can you imagine when it's your spouse? What that's like for the caregiver, for the other spouse? My aunt called the cops on my uncle when he came home. Did not recognize him from anybody. She went for the butter knife too, by the way, one time. Hopelessness, I can't keep doing this. Woo, frustration. He can't do most of the things he did before this happened. Disappointment. People forget that Derek was just like them before this happened. He wanted us to move to the lake, to fish, to take walks, to have the grandchildren come stay with us. Our loved ones' illnesses are going to impact not just them, but everyone around them. It's going to impact hopes, fears, future plans, joys. And most people, for some reason, we don't see this coming. Okay, everybody, raise your other hand if it's hurting a little bit at least. Okay, almost everybody, except Mr. Cooper. Almost everybody. All right, go ahead and put them down. Go ahead and put them down. If we did that for another 5 minutes, in addition to the burn, your arm and shoulder is going to start going numb. Y'all, that is the best metaphor I've seen for chronic stress. It doesn't have to be a lot of weight. You just have to keep carrying it, just like you would. And I want to talk about what that is, what that carrying, what the weight actually is. So our goal as a part of the ministry is to help all of us, no matter what burdens we're carrying as it relates to caregiver stress, to understand it, to normalize it, to be effective in dealing with it, and to help each other carry those burdens or that load, and to make it easier, to make it more sustainable. And now this is about the caregiver, not the person who had the stroke or has dementia or has health issues. Raise your hand if you've already been through some pretty significant caregiving situations, not counting children's or husbands. I meant raising your husband, wives. That's what I meant. So raise your hand again if you've already been around some significant involved with. All right. Yep. Couple of things right off the bat, if you were to look up what does caregiver burden affect, or what might you see, there's about 4 different things. Hold on, let me get to the next one. We're coming back to that one. I'll put them all up here. No, I'm not. I'm going to go in order. In the end, what's going to happen is the caregiving style oftentimes changes. It can become more abusive or neglectful. If you are under chronic stress for long periods of time, even if you're a saint, if you don't manage it well and you let it get over on you, you will notice we often see a change in caregiver style. None of it for the better. Mortality rates go up. The risk of death is, I think, almost 63% higher for stressed out caregivers in the same age bracket because of the stress. You'll see a lot of hospitalizations where the spouse is going in. My gosh, I was just at a pastor's house. He's got severe dementia. And he used to be in charge of one of the seminaries. He's still an incredibly nice person. Doesn't recognize his wife, but he's still just the sweetest man ever. And the wife was in the hospital the week before. So we're interviewing the situation, looking for safety risks, figuring out better ways or strategies. She forgot to mention that. She never even brought herself into the picture, which is so typical of a lot of caregivers. Mortality rates go through the roof, but so do the physical health and somatic symptoms of the caregivers. Blood pressure starts, weight loss, weight gain, digestive problems, cold, flu. You just become a lot more susceptible to so many things. And then, of course, you give up on caregiving at home and seek to institutionalize. So I'm going to read you one paragraph that sounds very medical, and I'm reading it to you on purpose, and it's going to be on the handout that you're going to get in just a minute, but I'm going to try to read you just one paragraph from it so you understand what you're going to be up against. It's a 5-sentence clinical overview of burden of care to drive home the reality of the medical aspects. The experience of caring for an individual is inherently stressful. These stressors activate the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis and the adrenergic sympathetic nervous system. After exposure to stressful stimuli, the hypothalamus releases corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH, which stimulates the pituitary gland to release adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. ACTH in turn triggers the release of glucocorticoids, cortisol, from the adrenal cortex. At the same time, the sympathetic nervous system is activated with the release of epinephrine, or adrenaline, from the adrenal medulla and norepinephrine from the sympathetic nerves. In combination, the molecules released during the stress response have profound effects on the function of most cells and organs throughout the body, including the brain, heart, respiratory system, muscle, skin, liver, gastrointestinal tract, and importantly, the immune system. Whew, made it through all those big words. That sounds a whole lot like a medical condition, doesn't it? What else can you get that increases your mortality rates by 4.5 times, that almost doubles your hospitalizations, that will consistently destroy your quality of life and break down your family dynamics? You almost can't find another disease process that can do all that for you. And yet you won't find it diagnosed. There's not a ICD-10 code for that. It is one of the most under-addressed, under-identified phenomenons that goes on in the healthcare system and as we age. In fact, if family caregivers were paid, it would be the #1 expense in the United States if family caregivers were paid. There's not even a close second place to it. All right. That all sounds a little doomy and gloomy, doesn't it? All right, let's get to the fun part. Here's what we figured out. This is part of the research. We figured out, y'all, that there's 16 different strategies that we can use to help keep the stress off of our caregivers. Now, I'm going to repeat a few things as we go. The first one is our church members, over and over, I see it more in our church members than anywhere else, is the loving, caring commitment to our loved ones is what sets us up to get destroyed by that chronic stress. How long would you be able to hold a phone or a Coke can out from your body? What do you think? 10 minutes tops? And that's just a little bit of weight. That constant drip, every time you're listening in the background, every time the spouse doesn't react the way you want them to, every time you have to physically assist them, anytime you're on duty worried about your loved one, that's dripping. That whole system is dripping more and more chemicals into your body. Over time, just like trying to hold that Coke, it will start destroying not just your physical health, but your mental and emotional health. And nobody sees it coming. They don't seem to realize it's happening because it's so gradual. You'll notice a few things every now and then you habituate to it. And you're like, I got a little testy that time. I snapped a little, but we're okay. I got another day. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to pray. We're going to get through another day. We're going to get through another day. We're going to get through another day. Without having an effective plan and realizing what's happening. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have, I think Jenna and Amber and Miss Avery hand out a quick paper to everyone that I'm going to use while we're talking it through. And I apologize that it's so small. I can't read it either. But in our library, the church library, that'll be available, if it's not already, will be available very soon. You can download these same documents. Just like for all of the potential challenges that come with aging, we spent 20 years coming up with and proving very effective solutions if we just do them. So there's two sides of it. One is from the little article I was reading, that one paragraph is in there. Let me show you how important this is. Two things. If you're on a plane and the oxygen mask falls from the thing above you, after you freak out, what is the first thing you're supposed to do? Then who do you put it on? The child or the person beside you that needs help. If you're going to be an effective caregiver, you have got to prioritize yourself, or hear me, you will not be an effective caregiver. You will lose all sense of identity and all roles and be consumed by being a caregiver. If you used to be a wife or a husband, that goes away. That will be replaced by a caregiver role. If you used to be a daughter, a sister, a brother, that will all get replaced. And it's just a weird natural phenomenon that happens from being worried and engaged all the time in trying to love and help take care of that person. There's a whole lot of ladies in here that are nodding their head that have been through this. The more caring you are, the more likely you are to get wiped out by something you never saw coming. That's why on the very first modality, where it says burden of care modalities or strategies, the very first one is perhaps the most important. We have to validate the caregiver. So when we're reaching out and helping anybody in these situations, we spend a whole lot of time trying to get them to understand. I was in Galveston with an EMT, had moved back from Dallas to take care of his dad, who was a leading surgeon on the pediatric side for years and years in Galveston. Dad's got dementia now. Son moved down almost 2 years ago from Dallas. The most nicest kid, I should say, he was probably 40-something. Most wonderful young man, had done so much, was taking his dad out, walk on the seawall still, just keep his days full as he could. He has 2 sisters, so this was a little bit rare. The son was down, not the 2 sisters, helping to manage this. I guess he was able to move locations. Now, he was in the kitchen kind of confessing. He's like, guys, I don't know what's happening. He goes, I'm snapping at my dad. I'm saying mean things. He didn't realize that over the last 2 years, it was starting to, his caregiving style was changing. The stress was mounting, and it was starting to break him. It had already broken him. That was the least of it once we pulled back the curtains. I said, do you realize that you would have been paid over $220,000 had you been a paid caregiver last year? And you could see his head tilt. It was like the first time he had put in any value on the care he was providing. Like for a guy, sometimes that helps. It's like they realize, like, wait a minute, oh my gosh, I'm doing something of value. St. John's, we had the daughter, I think we mentioned this before, but a daughter who had moved in back from Colorado and took over for mom's care after dad died, who'd cried a couple of different times just during the visit because she was breaking down so much. Same thing, I used the number equation on her. And she'd given up everything. She was so backwards, she thought by not paying rent, by being a caregiver of $200,000+ a year, she wasn't paying rent at her mom's place. She'd given up her life in Colorado. She'd gotten so backwards with this whole caregiving and stress that she thought she was mooching. She felt bad about mooching off her mom by not paying rent. I'm like, your mom isn't living here. You're saving your mom $200,000 and giving her a chance for these years to be here. So validating the caregiver, if I'm in a situation where I'm involved with in a care plan with a burden of care situation, I spend at least 35% of the time at least working with the caregivers. It's that important. Sometimes it's 75%. What happens to the person being cared for if the caregiver breaks? What happens? The entire panorama changes. It's a different set of options at that point. And oftentimes they do break first. Is anybody uncomfortable with the concept, or is everybody tracking? Does anybody feel a little weird with me emphasizing that as the caregiver, you are the priority? Does that sound a little weird on the surface? The good thing is I'm getting a bunch of yeses and some nos. If you want to be a good caregiver, you have got to last. You have to run the race. You need to outlive whoever it is you're caring for. And you need to do it and still keep your joy, your identity, your energy, your ability to think and problem solve, to act and react normally, to be healthy if you're going to be a good caregiver or successful. Okay, another strategy that we use is getting the caregivers to discuss their issues. Have y'all heard of any like Alzheimer's support groups? Have y'all heard that term? Many times, so I call it a caregiver support group. It's nice to hear other people going through the same challenges, sharing those things and some of the strategies and what you do, but just getting it off your chest and being able to talk about it is very cathartic. What generation is really bad about talking about their problems? Raise your hand if you're part of that generation. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Yeah, all of us. For sure, anybody in this room, 70 and above, we're talking about you right now. Y'all just handle it. It's really hard to get husbands and wives to tell their adult children that this is getting really hard for a lot of us, isn't it? Because we still want to just be the parent, and we call it that parental cover-up. So the kids don't know, and they're not helping, even though they would like to, and they'd like to partner to figure out solutions that are going to work. It is not sustainable. You can be as heroic as you want, but you will fail. You will fail every time if you take it all on yourself for years at a time. And people don't realize that. All right, another really good modality or strategy that we use as a part of the ministry is caregiver education, knowing what to expect and to plan for it. The real disappointment and the negativity comes when whatever you plan for doesn't meet your expectation. It's even better if it exceeds your expectation. If you meet it, it's like, okay, I met it. But if it doesn't meet it, you've got this whole profound, like, oh my God, it's hopeless, blah, blah, blah. And you wasted all that time and energy. So what we want to do is realistic caregiver education so you know what to plan for. Even if initially it's not as positive as you'd liked, over time you'll probably realize that that was exactly what you needed to plan for, and you're thankful that you did, that you planned realistically with it. Number one complaint on the next one, caregiver training. One of the number one complaints that we hear from family members is we don't feel like we have the technical competencies to do the caregiving job. You're having to learn a lot of these things on your own with a loved one, somebody you care about, which just multiplies the stress. So we need to make sure that if there's any caregivers that they feel like they have the technical skills to do whatever it is. Can somebody tell me one caregiving thing that they had to do that they did not feel technically competent to do or were uncomfortable doing the first time or the first 20 times? Anybody have any of those experiences? Thank you. That's a great one. Adjusting the oxygen tank. In many situations, of course, anytime you're dealing with anything medical, you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to kill them? By whatever it is, even if it's something little. But that's a good example because with the oxygen tank, if you crank up the oxygen too much and then there's a CO2 buildup, a lot of times you think, 2 liters is good, 8 liters must be better. That is not true. You can literally kill somebody, right? You get a CO2 buildup and they quit breathing. So yeah, there's a little bit of stressful thing in there. Has any adult men in here ever had to clean their mom? Probably not, because we figured out a way out of that. But that's usually the end of the line. That's where I draw it. I'm done. I'm tapping out. Has anybody had a parent that had an accident on their bed or on their couch? Has anybody ever had that? Yeah, I've had it. And the first time it was a little bit shocking. It is what it is. You can imagine anytime, has anybody here ever had to redirect a loved one who wasn't tracking cognitively? Like they're saying something that you can't just ignore. You're having to try to confront it or like, no, we can't do that. Has anybody ever dealt with that? Did any of us get any training on how to best manage dementia behaviors or people that are losing cognitive either by Alzheimer's or Lewy body? No, we don't need to face these things alone and make all the mistakes you can possibly make. So that's what the ministry is here for whenever you need it. We're going to be available to help with all of the training that you need as well. Simplifying the care regimen at home. There's a lot of ways. A lot of times they're bathing 7 days a week, so the objective stress of having to bathe seven times a week, right? You can lower that to 3 or 4 times a week. Another one is you're feeding your loved one 3 times a day, just feed them once a day. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Sorry. But simplifying the care regimen. A lot of times I remind them, if I have any of our church members going to see the doctor, I'll look at the situation and we will call the doctor ahead of time and make sure the doctor understands that we can't be waiting in the waiting room for 45 minutes. That as soon as we get there, we need to be seen because that person may not tolerate being up for long periods of time. There's all sorts of, we've got tons and tons of tricks on how to simplify the care regimen. Can that get done at home? So you save your outings for fun things, right? They're a little bit more controlled. All right, bringing in other caregivers. If you look at the next one, bringing in other caregivers. A lot of times what we'll do is, or I'll do, is I will give this to the caregiver and I will have them read it. I'll have them read the front. And then I'm going to have them read each one of these strategies and they're going to put a check mark by the ones they think would help them. Guess what one of the most checked ones is? Bring in other caregivers. And it's a great one. When you bring in other caregivers, you've got somebody else to objectively help manage the load. You have somebody to talk about, somebody to strategize with, but now you don't have to be on duty. 168 hours in a week. What's the most that anybody in here has worked in a week? Best week, or the worst week of their life. How many hours was it, guys? 85. Oh, women are ahead right now. Guys, have any of us beat that? I haven't. You got it. Okay. 85. There's 168 hours in a week. If you were the caregiver for someone with cognitive impairment, you are on duty 168 hours a week. Your sleep pattern is disrupted. There is no recovering from that. After you get a couple weeks into it, you will get burned down and out from it. So bringing in other caregivers can take you off the clock. Which also helps with the next one, which is time away. If you can set up a system of caregiving where you are not on the clock doing things other than worry about your loved one, it allows you to retain your identity, your roles, your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health. Without anybody looking down or reading about it, what do you think the number of hours, if your loved one has a form of dementia, what's research shown is the number of hours you've got to be off the clock, engaged in your own pursuits? What do y'all think it would be? The number is 40 hours. You've got to be off the clock 40 hours a week, not engaged in stressing or worrying if you're going to avoid a lot of the burnout and the symptoms that come with chronic stress. Dementia is a whole different type of beast. It's a constant redirection, a constant worry. It's an adult person that could hurt themselves at any time, right? They've got the physical abilities to get around and to get into trouble. They just don't have the cognitive abilities not to. Some of the easy ones are optimize the equipment, optimize the environment. Sometimes just adjusting the environment by moving things in certain places, certain ways, and adding certain pieces of equipment can help significantly certain situations. So those are always nice and easy wins. Most of the time those things might increase the self-reliance of the person being cared for, but many times it also increases the safety, so it helps lower the threat level in the mind of the caregiver so they're not quite as worried. That makes sense? Safe environment, safe space. Just so y'all know, the next one on here says increase self-reliance. It is very rare. By making sometimes you can help with the loved one. If they can do more things for themselves, it takes some of the objective stress or burden off. You're not having to do it for them. So whenever that's possible, we like to figure out ways for our loved ones to do as much as possible for themselves as long as they can do it safely. When we say on here on the next one is bring in other disciplines. That's a pretty broad category. That could be community resources, paid for resources, physical therapists, occupational therapists, nurses, sometimes other doctors. But if you're bringing in other disciplines, it all fits into that category, not just doing it by yourself. Other people might have better answers, better solutions. They might be able to intervene in certain ways. And I'm gonna come back to that in just a minute. Okay, minimizing outings. Get as much done at your home as you can is nice. If you can bring the doctors to you or some of the healthcare things to you, if you can bring the groceries to you. I know so many caregivers where that's their break. Going shopping is their break. Yeah, I had a whole lot of women just nod their heads. Can you imagine? No, I don't want to give that up. It's like, yeah, we just want you to do that for fun, though, not as your break. We want it to be a part of your normal life. You've got to be off the clock. You can't be worried. If your entire quality of life, the only thing you are giving yourself is a chance to go to the grocery store, you've already been overwhelmed by the caregiving role. If you're thankful for that, you have gotten eaten up by the caregiver role. Community resources I love. There's quite a few out there that that we don't know about that we can use. So we will help to in our area make sure that we know all of them that are available and are presented. I don't care if something as small as Meals on Wheels. If that's an extra meal I don't have to make, and if it's actually good and edible. And that can also be to paid things, like y'all have seen the adult. Daycare is not always the best word anymore. They've really evolved those where you can drop your loved one off for the day, and they've got a lot of really good activities to do that are enjoyable for that loved one. And they're usually very well cared for and monitored and engaged on an individual level. Many of those you have to pay for, but did y'all know that just from our churches, there is within 30 minutes of right here, there is a half a day. This is only for people with cognitive impairment. There's respite where they have a program where you can take somebody for half a day, drop them off at the church where they have things going on. So there's a lot of things that you may or may not know about that we're going to try and find all of them from this area so that we can access them. Next one down is counseling. Yes, sir.
We have a group of ministry called the Gathering.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Oh, we're doing it here?
Yeah, we're doing it here.
So there's the Gathering, which is great. We do it over at St. John's, and then there's an I just went blank on it. So St. Thomas is doing it now. They're doing it once a week. They're going to be doing it twice a week, and it's 6 hours a day. And technically just ask you give some kind of a donation to it. All right, but the church volunteers, I think we had 32 volunteers for 11 people, which was awesome. Yeah, that was too many. Some of y'all have to go home. Just when we were first getting started, it's catching up quick. So yes, we're going to find all of the opportunities locally if you need it. Counseling, sometimes it's just so bad you need professional counseling for it. You may be in a long-term caregiving situation, and just we know that on a percentage of cases it helps to engage in, to deal with if you get professional counseling. That's one of the bottom three that we see, but sometimes it's very necessary. And then there's one called respite. And respite means you have been under such a stressed out caregiving situation for so long that your previous identity is gone. And the only help for you is to get you to remove from the caregiving situation for 7 to 14 days. Ladies, that's the perfect length of a cruise. That's actually what we had to do to that kid in Houston that had moved from Dallas. We called the two sisters and said, hey, your brother's great, and as a guy, he's a shockingly good caregiver. But they didn't understand burden of care and what it does. They actually, with the following week out of Galveston, they had him on a cruise, on one of those 11-day cruises. And then they switched. They cut it in half and did it. They just didn't know. Most people do not realize the insane amount of stress that being a caregiver on the clock full time does to a human being. So respite is one that's really nice once it's gotten too far. So caregiver, and I don't mean the normal kind. You know where the husband and wife over time, we start to accommodate and we have strengths and weaknesses in the relationship. And as you age, one person may wear out in certain areas before the other. And so you just start helping each other through it naturally. Over time, almost all the time, one of the people's cognitive or physical wears out before the others. And then the amount of who's doing what starts to tilt. Pretty normal process. It's when that starts happening and this person doesn't ask for help, may not be able to look at it objectively because they've been doing it for so long. I was on a Zoom call yesterday afternoon with a member from St. John's who'd gone out to their families up by Texarkana, the parents. And you could see that husband and wife, that is what had been going on, except, so dad's kind of that fun curmudgeonous guy who's just old school, and he's going to be doing it his way, and they'd been bickering for years as a part of their normal relationship. Well, mom now has dementia, and she's not mild anymore. She's easily moderate. How do you think that's working out? You got a guy who isn't a natural-born caregiver at all, and you've got a wife who's kind of used to running the roost, I think, who's got at least the beginnings of moderate dementia. And they don't know what to do. No scores to know if we're over-indexed for risk. Who's supposed to be the caregiver in this situation? Yeah, those are the kind of questions we've got to explore, because now the kids are going to start trying to take shifts and get all the way up there. Is that sustainable? All right, so just know that when those things start to happen, or if you want to plan ahead of time, or if you see them on the horizon, getting the burden of care strategies in place early it's a lot harder once you're stressed out, once your chronic stress levels and those somatic symptoms have started. It's a lot harder to bring it back down just versus setting up a sustainable caregiver burden plan. If you keep it down, it's much easier to keep it down than once it goes up. It's a lot harder to get it down and keep it down. What we have found is when 8 of these are done at what we call a therapeutic level, when 8 of these are happening, we almost always see caregivers out of the severe range. At the highest we get is moderate, but 50% of the moderate people are now in the mild. That's huge. And as a part of a church body, and with all of the blessings and knowledges and opportunities that come with our faith, there are so many ways to get the most out of these strategies. And so, when we have more time and we're implementing them, there's a lot of depth to every one of these to get the most out of them. What's our number one problem with caregiver burden? What do y'all think it is? Put yourself in that caregiver situation across the country. What's the number? And it has to be a church member. Number one, sin of the church caregiver. Yeah, that was perfect. You got it. Accepting help. Admitting and accepting help. Admitting and accepting help. We are going to be living a lot longer than we were at any other time in history, with a lot more severe, profound functional declines than any other population in the history of the world. And as you get older, you don't have do we not have the same resources, right? Physically, emotionally, I don't know. Emotionally and mentally, I think some of y'all are doing strong, but physically, I know we don't. So admitting that we need help. Has anything so far helped give you maybe permission to at least talk about this sooner, do you think, today? Versus if we already have solutions for it, we know what it does. Does any of this lead anyone in here to be more open to examining or exploring it, talking about it, or asking for help sooner? I'm going to keep talking until y'all all nod your head. I'm just playing. What is a barrier for asking for help. Shout, God, y'all are good. The Coopers are crushing it. So shame, a lot of us think that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Is loving and caring for our spouses or our family members. And we are. Totally agree. And a lot of the women in our churches are just amazing at what they were able to do for as long as they were able to do it. Unbelievable. And so even if you're going to keep most of it on yourself, even if that's who you are, and I want to be the same way, get enough help so that it keeps you healthy, so you can be the best caregiver that you can be. Don't just do it alone. Just at least bring enough help in so that you can always see where the sun is in the sky, that your roles, all your different roles remain, and that you can stay the wife, the husband, the parent. This is Lance creeping up at me on the side here. I think that means we're about done and time to eat.
Yeah, I'm thinking about something in this, two points. I'm gonna come up there because we have the video on. Two points. The thing that we want to do, I think, as individuals, whether we're the care receiver or a caregiver, and then also in the church, in thinking about how we support one another in this, is, and so there's a nuance between the relationships. What we want to continue to, what we want to continue to do is to be mom and dad, or mom or dad, and son or daughter. We want to cease to be parent and child. There needs to be a transition out of the parent and child relationship into an adult son and parent or mom and dad and daughter or son. And that's a little more relational, less role. And I think that's a helpful thing for us. Now, what I want to say that goes along with that in a lot of this, and I love that shame was brought up, and guilt, is that we have a lot of these things that we think about and we say as Christians. I'm going to say it two ways. One, it wouldn't be the nice thing to do. Now, another way to say that is, well, that wouldn't be the Christian thing to do. And then all of that just layers guilt on us, right? Actually, Jesus was really clear about getting away and going up to the mountain to pray, because he had to get away from the people that were receiving his care and discipleship. And I mean, think about it. He had some guys that were having a hard time getting it, okay? So we have to move away from what, quote, is nice and move into what is loving. And I think when we think about being in relationship with our loved ones, in that relationship, as opposed to parent and child, or sibling, as opposed to brother or sister, for me to, kind of parse that a little bit, is for us to move into a more loving relationship, to be more fully present in that relationship with the person we're caring for, along with professionals and a church family that's coming alongside you to support you. So, St. Paul says we're to bear one another's burdens. That doesn't mean that we lose our boundaries, but it does mean that we support one another in love. And so that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. I think we'll go ahead and transition over, and then we'll start the Misa in here. And if you will, today, I want to say thank you to Randy again. And then remember, next week, we're going to do our session Engaging with Hospice. And think about what this means. Holy living, holy dying. Engaging with hospice earlier means that we get to have some holy living. Okay? So let's transition. And thank you.
Have the clicker. Thank you. If you want to arrange. Yeah, what can I do for you? You want to shrink these and then you want the binders?
Yeah, they're all back there.
Oh, perfect, perfect, perfect.
Hey, we're getting this.
It's just not.